First level of pleasure that we experience as a human being is primal, surrendered sense of safety. And this is the kind of pleasure that many of us get to experience in the womb, acknowledging that for some people, being in the womb is maybe not that kind of an experience because of what perhaps is going on with the mother. But for many of us, or for some of that time, we get this experience of being held, of being in total surrender, of needing nothing, of all our needs being met. We're floating, we're warm, we're fed, our waste is taken care of. We can just be. Safety. The second experience of pleasure as a human being, as a young child or a baby, is actually the relief of pain or discomfort. So the second thing developmentally that we start to experience as pleasure is like, wow, I've, dirtied my nappy and I'm feeling all wet. And then somebody comes and changes my nappy and like, oh man, I feel so much better now. There's a pleasure from the relief of the discomfort or relief of pain. The third level is what's called elemental pleasures. And this is laughter, games, play, sounding, movement. And this is the level where, in my experience, many of us have shut down from because we're far too grown up. We're far too sensible, we're far too adulted, and we think that when we grow up, we should leave these things behind. That those are for toddlers, and we watch and we project our playfulness through kids around us and other people, but we lose the sense of being playful, of being able to laugh and express. And when you look at little toddlers and babies, they're kind of always trying different noises, making different sounds, amusing themselves with rolling over and laughing and playing. And as I said earlier, these are linked. So if this level is shut down in you or restricted in you, your capacity for sensual and sexual pleasure is impacted quite substantially. The next level is mental pleasure. And how many of us have monkey minds, have harsh inner critics that actually, we are at times very cruel to ourselves. Quite often, we would never speak to other people or those we love with the kind of words and voice that we would speak to ourselves with. And how able are we to allow and experience pleasurable thoughts? The next level is emotional pleasure. Can you feel pleasure in your emotions? Now, it might be that beautiful emotions are happening for you, or your life out of circumstances are all, so amazing that you should feel joy and love, but actually maybe you feel miserable. Maybe you feel angry. Maybe you feel disconnected. Our capacity to feel each of these pleasures is not necessarily related to our outer circumstance. It's related to the inner part of us that can receive that, or that can allow that to be, that feels safe enough. And then we move into the last three levels of this pleasure model, which are the three S's, which are sensual pleasure, which often gets kind of overlooked in sexuality and in sexual relating. And for many people, that can be a big key to opening up sexual pleasure, is actually understanding that for them, sensual pleasure is essential in the cascade of opening to sexual pleasure. So we're so kind of bombarded with noises and information and screens, and often we're shut off from the natural environment. Where can we relearn to appreciate smells and touch and sounds, and where can we activate the sensual body so that when we move to sexual pleasure, which is the next pleasure, we have our playfulness with us, we feel safe, we feel comfortable, our mind is not fucking us over, our emotion and body is able to receive joy, our sensual body is activated, and we can be in sexual pleasure, which is a totally different experience to attempting to be in sexual pleasure while your mind is, monkey minding you. Your rage is sitting in your belly. You don't feel safe in your body. You feel too self-conscious to laugh. Like what amount of pleasure is actually possible in that state? And the eighth state of pleasure is spiritual pleasure. Now, spiritual pleasure, for me, when I think of it, I think mostly of bliss states. I think mostly of being in the void, of like post-orgasmic energy, of just flying where nothing exists and no one exists, and I just disintegrate. Like the most beautiful experiences in a spiritual pleasure, which is often, if you allow it, related to sexual pleasure. Most often sexual experiences can be very spiritual if we are open to them being. But also spiritual pleasure can be things like empathy, altruism, morality. There can be a pleasure that comes from feeling like in alignment, feeling like, feeling like we can have empathy with others, that our capacity for care, for being altruistic and selflessly giving to others. So when I started to work more deeply with these a few years ago with individuals, what I wanted to do was to take this mental model and to start to map that onto body experiences, onto somatic experiences, onto embodied experiences, and see what happens if you go back to the beginning and you start to open up